that have never been done before.
We, the people, tell the government what to do. It doesn't tell us. We, the people, are the driver. The government is the car. And we decide where it should go and by what route to do. We, the people, are free. And I hope we have once again reminded people that man is not free unless government is limited.
Morning, folks. How are you for a very fine Saturday morning in my part of the world anyway? And good morning to Sunflower, who was in the chat and telling me that it started to cool down up around her way, which is a couple of hours north of me. So a little cooler, a little bit of rain coming your way. That'll be the influence of the cyclone that's off the Queensland coast at the moment. We'll be keeping a close eye on that over the weekend as well. Time now for a bit of a catch-up with our man who knows all things about precious metals. Michael Engerman from Ainslie Bullion joins us this morning from a sporting platform somewhere in Brisbane. How are you, mate?
Yeah, good, Carl. Good morning. How are you?
Good. Are we footballing or cricketing this morning?
No, that's all the kids running out there with the footballs around them. So that's started. It's
Brilliant.
March.
Oh, it is March.
And look what happens.
I know, and when you've got three kids, it doesn't change. I imagine you've got a number of sports in your house that you've got to get around to every weekend.
You're very true there. It's a busy Saturday. I feel like I'll call it a taxi driver because I know people say Ubers these days, but, the old taxi driver just going from thing to thing to thing. It finishes about 2 o'clock this afternoon. So, I do get some reprieve.
You'll be able to sit down and have a swim then if the rain hasn't arrived.
Yeah, but it's a beautiful, like you just, Sunflower said, and you've just said down your way as well. Well, it's the same here in Brizzy. Clear skies. And this is typical of, when you've got a system that's as big as it is, and it's not far from here. It's sucking all the weather into it. So this is very typical of what to expect, really. So
yep, absolutely. And in about a week's time, it'll be very typical what we get then too. Voluminous.
Well, let's just hope it's some long-needed rain because February hasn't been as wet as what we would have hoped.
True.
Some pockets have had it, but we get summer rains, and if we don't get some serious rain, then it's going to be a very dry winter. So
yep, unbelievably so. Mate, you must have been flat out for the last few weeks at your work with what's going on in the precious metals market and the rumours surrounding so many things that could influence that. I've got a really weird question for you straight out of the box. Because there is such a lot of talk about gold, particularly at the moment, do you guys... I read a story during the week that somewhere in, I want to say it was America, but it might have been the UK, a gold bar was discovered that wasn't a gold bar. It was a very good faked gold bar, but it really wasn't gold. Is that something you guys come across in your game here in Australia at all? I mean, are people actively trying to fake you?
Look, I wouldn't directly say us, but I think the industry absolutely is a target. We are constantly, when I say constantly, just to put that into perspective, it's probably, maybe yearly we would come across a fake of some sort, be it gold, silver, someone, that, and most of the time, the people that are trying to sell it to us appear genuine and appear they honestly did not know that they'd bought a fake. But when we talk about where did they go, how did they get it, the price they paid, the story that we always hear in life is if it's too good to be true, it probably isn't true. Well, guess what? Most of the time when you get to the nitty gritty and ask them how much they paid for it, it was way below spot that the spot price was at the time. And it just doesn't happen in precious metals. You just can't buy that far away from spot and it be real. So, so that's, you don't have to dig too much to then find out, well, what actually happened.
So that should be a warning to anybody who's being offered at this time, particularly, the ability to buy, oh, listen, I've got a few bars of silver or I've got a few coins, golden coins. Look, I'll sell you one for $2,000 instead of the $4,500 that it's worth. How's that for a deal? Is that the kind of thing we've got to be aware of from people who come into our sphere?
Spot on. I mean, you've got to be very careful. That's exactly right. So be very careful buying privately. There's lots of obviously advantages for people if they want to buy a particular type of collector coin. eBay, all those type of places. But you've got to be very careful. How do you test that is real? How do you know that is actually real? That's the beauty of the businesses like ours. And we've been doing it for 51 years, that we make sure, because of our machines that we use and the testing that we do on everything that we buy, that absolutely it's tested and it's real. So
now,
that's important to note.
Without putting too fine a point on it, I've bought some silver from you, and I've also had to hand it back to you. When I've bought silver from you and then had to bring it back in to sell it back to you, do you test the same? Like, you sold it to me, but it's been in my possession for a while, bloody short while, and then I give it back to you. Do you retest that?
Oh, absolutely, because we don't know that what you've done with it. So the moment the product walks out the door, every product gets tested when it comes back in.
Yeah, right.
So because of that, we just don't know. We can't trust. You just do not have trust in this industry. So you absolutely have to test everything that comes back in once it's left the facility.
I'm being asked about copper bullion in the chat. Dusty wants to know about it. Is that a thing yet?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's been used in coins for a long, long time, but no, not something that we've come across or will probably entertain at this stage. So,
yeah. All right. What do you do when you come across someone who inadvertently has, as we say, bought something they thought was real and turns out not to be? Are you under an obligation to report them to police, or are you under an obligation to report the fake to anywhere?
No, not at all. I mean, it's just a product, isn't it? It's like buying anything off a pair of shoes. If it's a pair of shoes from Thailand versus, from the US, and you thought you were buying the original, whatever the brand is, and it's not, well, yeah, I mean, it's not up to us to then go and report it. It's the person that bought it needs to go and do due diligence and report it themselves, or work that through. Just because they've tried to sell it to us, it really has nothing to do with us, because we haven't entered into any agreement to buy it off them.
Speaking of potentially stolen gold, there's been a lot of talk about Fort Knox and the auditing there of it.
That's a great segue, isn't it? You've done well there.
Thank you, mate. I work on these things, 4,580 tons is the amount of gold expected to be in the Fort Knox vaults. I heard, or I saw a story, I don't know how true it was, late last night before I went to bed, that 400 tons of it appears to be missing. I don't know that Musk or Doge have been in there yet. What sort of significance would it mean to the gold market if 4,580 tons of American reserve gold isn't where it should be?
Look, it's probably a very loose question. I mean, it's a direct question, but it's a very loose answer to be trying to work out exactly what would happen. There's a lot of people out there speculating as to what will happen. And some of those things you will have read during the week. Obviously collapse of financial markets, price of gold going through the roof, total distrust in the system. So there's a lot of these headlines and a lot of these articles. We've written them on our Ainslie research, which we publish every single day, talking about it as well. But no one really knows, Carl. And I think there's just, people are theorising with regards to what may happen. But I think we can all be pretty sure that if what we believed in as a system and as what was meant to be happening around the world with, especially, and don't forget, this is not the first time. This is, I think, if it's caught that they actually, the Fed has been leasing their gold. So, it's not just Fort Knox. Remember, there's lots of locations in America. People are just getting caught up on this Fort Knox facility, but most of the gold is actually still stored in New York. So don't forget that if all of a sudden the politicians catch that the Fed has actually been leasing gold out, that's what we believe, or I personally, and again, there's lots of theories out there, but my theory is that I believe that they have been leasing gold. They shouldn't have been leasing because it's not theirs. And that's the whole, COMEX thing and whatnot. They've been leasing this gold, letting it go, and now all of a sudden, under the disguise of tariffs, all this gold's flooding back in because they have note that they're going to be an audit happening. So the tariffs
are involved in this.
Tariffs are just a cover. it's just a cover, mate. It's just to try and make mainstream think about that's the reason the gold's coming back in the country, because they don't want to add tariff to it. It does not make sense. You don't have to dig very far to then realise that tariffs have got nothing to do with it. So it's literally because they've been leasing gold and rehypothecating the gold that's in America, and they have now been warned that an audit's coming, and all that gold needs to be returned. And that's why all these big banks and central banks, feds, etc., are getting all their gold back.
Well, I was going to ask that question. We've seen there is pretty much a conga line of aircraft from the UK, especially to New York at the moment, all carrying gold back to the Fed. Where does Australian gold reserves reside?
That's a great question. Where do you think?
I think they reside in the Bank of England.
Well, I think it's all in the mines that are still in the ground in Australia. That's what I believe.
I would hope, certainly having been to the Palmer River Gold Reserve, I think there's a fair bit of gold still in the ground there. But what about the gold that we've dug out of the ground? What about the gold that we did send to the Reserve Bank not the Reserve Bank, the Bank of London, or Bank of England rather, in the City of London?
Yeah, so again, it's look, I don't know. No one really knows. I know Malcolm Roberts has tried to dig around this and ask some direct questions, which, got the typical politician answer on. Because, what happens in this, what happens in this situation is that you tell the Bank of England that you're coming over to check your reserves. We all know that there's no actual markings on any of the bars. The bars are just bars. And they just moved them from one cage. So let's just say they were sitting in New Zealand's cage. Before Australia turned up, they moved them from New Zealand's cage to Australia's cage. And, there it all is. It's still all sitting there. So I don't know is the truthful answer. I don't know if we still have it. You can only rely on what the politicians are saying and what they are, letting us believe happens. But we all know over the last 4 or 5 years, we're losing less and less trust in that being fact. So
it appears that since 2015, the Bank of England has been able to either melt down or sell our gold, lease our gold out for whatever reason, as you say. I'm surprised there are no markings on the bars. There are no mint markings. There are no nothing.
Yeah, well, that's the beauty of the game that we're involved in. That's the beauty of all this ETF and paper derivative gold and silver, and why it's obviously the situation that we're in now, and it's got a chance of unraveling, and that's why I think the biggest fear that we have in the market right now is that if the gold and silver issues we have with paper derivatives and being all called back, people may be left, standing with their pants down because they don't have anything backing their paper derivative. And if that happens, we're talking an enormous amount of tons of gold and silver that are not real. And all of a sudden, the world wakes up and says, this is just a fraud, it's a phony, and we have a massive collapse of the financial system because, yes, overall, the dollars aren't that big compared to some of the banking collapses. But don't forget, all the banks have, gold as, the central banks are all buying gold to try and get through this. It could be bigger than we've seen ever before.
And the central banks will be coming under a great deal of scrutiny, I would have thought, because there could be quite a lot of the missing gold in their vaults.
Yep, and that's why I suppose you asked before about the markings on the bar. I don't know personally whether any country actually marks their bars and puts barcodes on them and that sort of thing. I don't know that answer. But when it comes to just shifting things around, that's why you're seeing all this. Well, why is the US gold in England anyway?
In England.
Why does it have to get moved back? I mean, that's the question that everyone should be asking is, if it's America's gold, why is it sitting in another country? Why is Australia's gold sitting in another country? Why can't it sit in our Sydney, Melbourne, Canberra?
Yeah. I mean, we've wasted plenty of money building other buildings. Can't we build a big safe for it here in Australia?
I think that's the underlying question the population should be asking is the why around why do we have to store it internationally? I don't understand it. When you can fly gold or ship gold relatively simply, why do we have to keep it in another country?
I believe that the habit of keeping gold in different countries began basically with the Rothschilds when they set up the first banking systems, and that was to stop the robbers getting a hold of the merchants on the roads as they traveled Europe in between different countries, carrying gold with them so that they could do trade at the other end. Could we be talking about the same sort of system here?
Well, isn't that amazing that you can just draw a line between a few things you've just said then and what's going on with the greater system at the moment? So
Yeah.
You don't. That's what I mean. You don't have to dig very far to, I think, start to ask the why a little bit harder, and have the politicians ask it for us, because as a population, we know that falls on deaf ears. But we just need more people in there asking more direct questions.
There are rumours, and have been rumours for some years now, that during his first term, President Trump was able to liberate some 650 military cargo plane loads of gold out of the Vatican. Now, take away the side of the argument of the Vatican and why would they have 650 plane loads of gold stored in the catacombs. What sort of an impact would that have, given the market at the moment is looking like it is? It's going to be a bit shaky, going to potentially, if it does collapse, it will collapse the global financial market, which is in line with a global financial reset that we've all been talking about for some time. What's the 650 plane loads of gold going to do?
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't know, Carl, with regards to the 650, whether it's fact, fiction.
Yeah.
You don't know, so I'm not going to commentate on whether that is actually happened or not. But the fact is that I think you only have to understand a little bit of history to understand that those that have got the gold then have the might with regards to wars. So you wouldn't want to be in a war and have no gold. So
Right.
that obviously then helps you if the financial system is kafunk, and it's no longer working. Guess what it returns back to? It returns back to gold. And you've got an asset that is valuable that you can trade for steel or for ammunitions or whatever it might be. So I think that is my understanding of history in relation to why countries want their gold. Because if the financial system, which is generally electronic these days, does go kapunk because of what's going on around us, well, you need the gold to be able to trade.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. As Dusty in the chat has pointed out, there might be some reach back, and people who've been watching my show for a while will understand what we're talking about here. There might be some reach back here to the MH370 disappearance, because my understanding at the time that aircraft disappeared, it was carrying a very large amount of gold that was being sent back to China to buy back some of the US debt after the GFC. In 2008, and that gold didn't belong to America. That gold belonged to other countries, which store their gold at the Fort Knox and other institutions in America. That gold couldn't be allowed not to be there when, say, the French or the Germans came looking for it. So the Americans, in good faith, put all the gold on an aircraft and flew it to China. The aircraft crashed, disappeared. Nobody's ever found it again. But that gold, I guarantee you, is back inside where it should have been. So there are a lot of stories surrounding gold and the things people will do for it, and if countries may have been doing the wrong thing. This leasing idea of leasing gold out seems to be the way that they've done it. Is it something like? Do we do that? Do we lease our gold out to New Zealand or to?
Yeah,
or at least
I don't
secret
know,
arrangement?
Carl, but I'm not sure if we do it. I haven't dug that deep. But what I will say is, though, that's not new. This has been going on. This debt system I talked about before with you is what we operate under. We operate under a debt system, and it's no different to our banks at the moment, where you can put $10 in the bank, and they will then lease that $10 or loan that $10 out to other people 8 or 9 times. So, that means it's no different. So that's what they're doing with the gold. That the gold is the eventual backed asset, and those banks are then taking loans and leasing out things, using it as collateral. So we shouldn't be surprised it's happening, but we know it's not right. But this, hopefully, because they've just been doing it over and over and over and expanding it, over more and more and more, hopefully that it gets caught and we head back to a non-debt system where people are, back into the, I suppose, there's valid reasons to have debt, but then there's also valid reasons not to. So,
Sure. Should the people of Australia be calling for some sort of an audit of our gold reserves?
So Malcolm Roberts tried to do this some time ago. I think it was only just recently, like in the last year. He's been banging this drum, very loudly here in Australia, and trying to get an answer. But I actually don't know where it ended, but I don't think it ended very well. I think it was literally just the same answer we always get, is that we believe it's there. We'll send our auditors over and we'll give the Bank of England plenty of notice that we're coming. And we'll send our auditors over to audit the stock, and lo and behold, there it is. What we should be doing is auditors should be just turning up and just auditing. Then even this whole Fort Knox, Fed audit that, Trump and Musk have been peddling now. Oh, what's that? 2-3 weeks, maybe? We've been hearing about this? Well, Jesus, I'll tell you what, there's plenty of time to get your house in order, isn't it?
Yeah, there is.
So I think there's there's a political side to this as well that again, I'm theorising, but there's a political side to this that I don't know where it's going. But, don't be surprised if they actually don't want to not uncover, if you know what I mean. They actually want it to be there, but it's for another reason that they're doing it. I don't know. So.
Yeah, true that. Another question from the chat, and I imagine there's not much you can do with this, but gold and or silver comes in various different shapes and forms and sizes, and some of it comes in the form of jewellery. Ainslie Bullion, I don't know, I've never seen anybody in there handing over a gold necklace to you, but do you take jewellery or that sort of thing as a gold or silver payment?
Yeah, no, Ainslie don't. We don't deal in jewellery or scrap metal, but there's plenty of people around that do. And that's, it's a very valid way. The Indian community, the Indian country is well known to buy gold and put it into jewellery. And that's how they gift at weddings and ceremonious events. They will gift gold. And yep, it'll dry. Hang on. Sorry, Carl. Got an emergency here.
Oh. Got to look out when we get an emergency on the sports field. Hopefully we won't hear any ambulances.
Sorry, just one daughter decided to hit the cup of water that was going up to my other daughter's mouth from underneath, and the water went all over her. So,
I see.
Yeah, no ambulance is required, but mental ambulance has dealt with it. So
very good.
But yeah, no, I think that I was saying about the Indians. Well, they've been doing that for generations. That's what they do. That's their superannuation, if you'd like to call it that. So yeah, but it's not something that Ainslie deal in, no.
So when it is turned into jewellery, is it loses that 4/9's purity?
Well, it's no longer bullion. It may not lose its purity because remember, 24 karat gold, which you can buy as jewellery, is pure gold. So right. That's the 99.95 is literally 24 carats. Now it's not bullion because it doesn't carry the trademark, the weight, and the purity on a piece of jewellery. So you'd have to then send it to a refiner or get it tested to know whether it actually is what it says, what the jeweller's saying it is. Yep. But yeah, absolutely, you can buy pure gold. It's very soft, and that's hence why that listener earlier in the chat mentioned copper. Well, that's why copper was added to gold for coins in the past, because it strengthened the coin, and the coin could not be easily bent or damaged or misshapen. Yeah.
Because that was the thing. Gold was too soft to just be a coin by itself, because you put it in your pocket, sit down, and it gets bent, gets folded in half, winds up turning into a lump after you've had lunch and 3 dinners with it.
Yeah.
So no. All right. Well,
and just the last thing I think I'd throw out there too, Carl, just an interest sake, really, more than anything else. Don't forget, this has been going on for thousands of years. They have only just, not recently, but just in the last 20 or 30 years, found that ship off somewhere off the coast in Southern America somewhere.
Yeah,
And it was a
Florida
Spanish ship.
between.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they found 5,000 plus years underwater, and there's all the gold sitting in it still to this day.
Yep.
Perfect. You know, no different shape or size. Could read all the writing on the pieces of gold coins, etc.
Yeah.
So people shouldn't be surprised at what's going
Coral
on.
hadn't even grown on it, had it? It was
No.
absolutely pristine.
Yeah, so that's the one thing that I'd probably leave the listeners with is that, worry about things we can control. A lot of this stuff is out of our control. It's been happening the same way for thousands of years amongst governments, countries, empires. They come and go. Governments, countries, empires all come and go. The dollars, the fiat dollars, they all come and go. Not one of them has been able to survive ever. The US dollar is obviously the longest one surviving. But gold, everything returns back to gold and silver and so forth. So I don't expect that it'll be any different throughout this part of history.
So my Ainslie Saver account this week, which may or may not exist, if I'm honest, but it's swinging. Should I be going to crypto? Should I be buying gold? Crypto is I think Bitcoin has gone down 84,000. I think Bitcoin is at the moment US. But that's part of the cycle for it. For a newbie like me, what do I do with my Saver account? Do I keep throwing it into gold and silver, or do I start throwing a bit of money into crypto?
Yeah, look, I mean, it's personal choice. We're not here to, advise. We can't do that. But, absolutely, you pointed out that the crypto has had a pullback. That's typical. If you look at, look out at the chart and look at it across the last 10 years, you'll see plenty of pullbacks that have been in this magnitude. So it's not surprising. It went down to about 79. It's come back up overnight. Great time to, get in if that's what you choose to do, because you could have got in at 104 or 94 or 98, whatever it was, been sitting at. But you've just picked up a great buying opportunity. So if that's what people choose to do, now's a great time. Will it go down further? Don't know. I mean, you don't know. There's every chance it could. You have to look at the data and have a look at those charts to see what that answer is. Whether you want to buy gold or silver, I mean, the gold-silver ratio at the moment is about 91, 92. That's quite high. So that's higher than what it's been the last 6 months. So that's a great time to buy silver. I think precious metals will continue to, do what they do. And in the current circumstances worldwide, I think that, you've got to have assets in these different, in the crypto or in the gold and silver space, because I think there's going to be some crumbling happening in all the other asset space, personally.
Yeah, that's sort of the way I feel about it too. Mate, thank you for spending half an hour with us on a Saturday morning, and I do trust that you'll be able to get the appropriate care to your daughter who's soaking wet. She's probably going to be appreciating it about now.
That's the old, you got to, how do we toughen up kids if they can't be, they've got to appreciate that it is only water, right?
That's true. You're not allowed to tie them by a dog leash to the back of the car when you drive home anymore either. So, yeah.
No, well, don't talk to me about dogs, because ours got out last night and we tried to find it all. So it's just calamity of things, really. But anyway.
Have you had success finding it?
Oh, yeah. She got...
good.
She's a lovely little dog and very friendly. So, probably 2 streets away, had her, sleeping on their bed overnight. So it was...
very nice. Very nice.
She's an outdoor dog, but she made her way indoors.
It's a beautiful way to go and make new friends around the neighbourhood, isn't it? Have you got my dog?
Yeah.
Excellent.
All good,
all right,
thanks. Mate. No problems at all, Carl. We'll catch up with you and your listeners at some other stage. Thank you.
Absolutely. And can I just get you to pass on from me particularly, Chris Tipper's work in your newsletter and the videos that he puts out is just amazing work. It is so easy for somebody, a numpty like me, to understand. That he and the team of people, Paul's in there too, occasionally too, I notice, but the information that they bring on multiple times a day, not just once a day, multiple times a day, is just so important, and they present it in such a great way. Can you just pass on my best to them?
Yeah, no, will do. Absolutely. And I concur. It's something that we spend a lot of money on and a lot of time on every week doing this, and hope that, you obviously have just said what you've said, but hopefully other listeners and other people out there are getting the same value. So we'll absolutely pass it on. Thank you for the thoughts.
Yeah. No problems at all. I'll let you go back and be the adjudicator for the rest of the day.
No worries, Carl. Enjoy the Saturday and enjoy the Saturday listeners. Talk to you.
Thanks, mate. See you, mate. Michael Engerman from Ainslie Bullion. Of course, ainslebullion.com.au is the website. You can go there and check it out. The Lunar Dragon, if you haven't had a look at some of these new coins for 2025, are just stunning. I want one of those wedge-tailed eagles. I'll have to go and save me pennies up for that. The Lunar Snake is out, and then there is the Chinese myths and legends thing. And of course, right across the top there, you can see what gold and silver pricing is currently doing. $50.15 for silver, that's the spot price, and $4,598.81 for gold. It's dropped down under 4,600 for the first time in some weeks. Gold-silver ratio, as Michael said over here on the right-hand side, that's what that gold-silver thing is on the last one on the chart. Oh, somebody's given me a call, and I forgot to turn my phone off. He'll have to wait for a minute. And yeah, that gold-silver ratio is sitting at 91.7. So watch that. When that one starts to go down, you want to be having as much silver as you possibly can. Okay, guys, I'm going to love you and leave you. Of course, there is a little bit of news coming out of America this morning, if you haven't already seen it. Zelensky turned up, as expected, at the White House. And in the Oval Office, he decided to start an argument with Trump and J.D. Vance. It didn't work terribly well. I want to say it's probably for two reasons. One, I don't think Zelensky's very smart. And I don't mean smart. I just mean I don't think he's very intelligent. He also is working in a language that isn't his native one and maybe doesn't have a full command of understanding it and or speaking it. He has said some things that the Americans found quite offensive, and was essentially turfed out. Trump ended the press conference, and Zelensky was asked to leave. And he is welcome back, apparently, when he wants peace. But at the moment, Zelensky thinks he's got a lot of power because he's got American power on his side. He was there to sign a resources agreement so that America could presumably locate and mine certain resources. I don't know what resources that they have out of Ukraine in an effort to repay some of the $350 billion worth of cash and other things they've already been given through the Biden administration. Now, Zelensky just seemed to want it to be point scoring, belligerent child, doesn't understand his position in this at all, I don't think. And Trump made it pretty obvious if you see any mainstream media coverage of it today, and I'm sure you will. The only thing that's going to take that mainstream media coverage off the front pages is the full unredacted release of the Jeffrey Epstein files. And I haven't seen any evidence of that yet, but it is only early. So I don't know. There's an awful lot of fishy shit going on around those files, and I just hope they have been released already. Pam Bondi and Kash Patel, I would say, will only get till the end of the weekend to make this happen. Trump's going to come out and start talking about it after that, and when that happens, it's going to be a real problem. They're going to have to start admitting what's happened. And if, as I have heard, all of that information was stored on compartmentalized servers that were not in FBI buildings and not under direct, if you like, FBI control, they were isolated and could not be accessed from any FBI computer. You had to go to a certain facility to be able to view these files, which means by necessity that there aren't a great deal of copies of them. And if you needed to destroy them, in theory, they're all in one place. So it remains to be seen what's been destroyed, what hasn't been destroyed, and what truth or lack thereof may be coming out in it. Today, hopefully, we will learn more over the next 4 or 5 hours, but potentially there is a lot more information out now. I just haven't been out to go and have a look at it. So I'll do that now, shall I? We might be having another show a little bit later on this evening. God love you all. What are you doing today? It is a beautiful day in this part of the world. The wind will start to pick up. And a little bit north of us, 2-3 hours north of us, it started to cool down and the rain is coming. So that's sort of Sunshine Coast, north of the Sunshine Coast. And I haven't even looked at the weather map. Some weird things going on in my world over the next few days. Monday night's show could be from anywhere, and it might be late. But if it is late, there is a high chance that I will have it from a very special place. And the reason it will be late is because I will have to do it after dinner. And that dinner, I'm led to believe, is going to be red gum and all the trimmings, including the white sauce. Where will it be? Well, I don't know, but I could give you a bit of a hint, I guess. Hee-haw! Not a very good hint, but anyway, we'll see what happens. That's coming up Monday night. I'm on the road, Jack, from very early Monday morning, and then on the road again from very early Monday afternoon, heading back. So we will see what happens. But definitely I am heading to the sanctuary and we'll be catching up with Baz and Sandy. So that'll be Monday night. I'm going to film some stuff with them Tuesday before driving back here. So hopefully on Tuesday night, maybe Wednesday night, because by the time I drive back, I probably won't have time to edit it. So Wednesday, I'll have some footage from the Donkey Sanctuary. Hopefully Sandy and Baz will take us on a guided tour and you can meet May and a few of the other lovely donkeys that they have on site there and a few of the volunteers they have to help. I'm really looking forward to catching up with them. All right, folks, you have yourself a bloody good day. Saturdays being what they are, and at the moment it seems to be quite nice outside. I'd better go out and do something. Oh, and happy birthday to Dwayno. It's his birthday today. If you're on the roads, don't be a dickhead. Watch out for the ones that are.
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up.
Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life.
It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back.
Does anybody else want to stay?
Let's ride!